So today we're going to show you how to use the Sun Fashion Designs pendant stamping machine. Before we get started, I want you guys to take a peek and make sure that your sliding plate, which is this piece right here, is centered with your actual machine. And we're going to do that by making sure that our machine, which is painted in black, maybe the camera wants to come in so they can see the black parts of the machine. There's these bars here that make it a flat surface with a plate, and we want to make sure that the machine comes to just on the inside of the paint lines of the sliding plate. And it's important that we are lined up before we begin stamping. And then we have these lines on the actual sliding plate that will allow you to make the centermost mark on all of our pendant shapes. So before we get started, I'll show you guys how you line up each different type of pendant. So we carry variations of 3 different shapes of pendants. Again, you can use absolutely anything, any pendant, any bracelet that you want. You can use this machine to stamp it. However, we only include pre-marked lines on our sliding plate for our shape of pendants. But of course, anything can be stamped with it just by doing a little bit of work and marking some lines to help you line up your pendants. If I want to stamp the heart pendant, I have a couple lines here that are going to help me guide it. First and foremost, I have 2 very thin lines that are vertical. Now these lines, in between these 2 lines is the dead center of the sliding plate. So if I were to stamp the number 1 dead center, it would come right in between these 2 lines. And it's nice to have 2 lines because when I'm lining up the heart, I want to make sure that the tip of the heart is in between both these lines. The next thing I need to make sure of is that the heart comes in between these 2 vertical lines on either side of it. So I'm making sure that the tip is in between these 2 lines and that the whole heart fits up to the inside of the paint line. And again, once you get going and you're more familiar with this, you're able to stamp these very quickly. I'm just doing it 100% precisely. I'm going slow so everybody can have a chance to take a look at theirs and the video screen while they're doing it. So this, if I were to stamp a character, this would be center in the machine. I know this because of the predetermined marks. It would be safe to stamp a character here. All I'm doing now is bringing it down so that way the tip of the heart is on this horizontal line right here. It's in between the 2 verticals. The whole heart is in between these 2 verticals, and the heart, the tip of it, has been brought down to this horizontal line. That is completely dead center, so it is safe to start stamping. Now if I want to stamp a dog tag, there's a couple different ways to stamp dog tags. I like to stamp dog tags horizontally. And so it might be a little hard to see with the black dog tag, but these are the lines you have to work with. And I'm going to slide the dog tag up to this horizontal line, and from there all I'm going to do is adjust it left and right. And we came up with a real neat system here, and all I'm really going to do is make sure that the pendant, the dog tag, is flat against that horizontal line. And then, as you can see, these lines right here are going to come out, and they're actually going to come just to the inside of this point on the dog tag. So you have this flat edge on the dog tag, and then it starts to curve up. Well, we want to make sure that these lines are coming to just inside where it starts to curve. and this allows for a great system. These few amount of lines will allow us to line up all of our pendants, and we feel it's the best way. And so now that I have it lined up on the horizontal line, and I have these curved lines touching the points on the dog tag, if I want, just to be safe, I can put a stamp in and take a look from all angles, and that is going to be a stamp that's pretty much going to be dead center exact in the middle of the dog tag, and it's safe to start. Now, people also like to have their dog tag stamped vertically, which is no problem. If you remember these lines that we have here, all we're going to do is bring those down, make the dog tag vertical, and have the dog tag sit in between the two vertical lines here and here. And as long as I've brought the dog tag all the way down to match this curved line down here, it is now safe to stamp. And if I want, I can put a stamp in there, take a quick peek from all angles, and say, yep, that's about as dead center as it's going to get. The last shape, which is pretty easy, is the circle. And again, we have all these shapes in multiple colors and color combinations. So the circle is pretty much going to touch three lines. It's going to be on the inside edge of both these vertical lines, and then the bottommost point of this horizontal line, the circle pendant is going to just barely touch it. And what we also need to make sure is that the circle pendant is straight. And you can take a peek by looking in the back and making sure that these two thin lines are running through the middle of the bail in the back there. And again, any small slight difference is really truly not going to be noticed. The most important part is centering your multiple lines, and I'll get to that in a second. So now that you've gotten the basic idea, and you can play around and get more comfortable with it, I'm going to show you guys what work needs to be done very quickly to have a successful stamp. So let's say I'm at a fair and somebody says, I want you to stamp Johnny and Sarah. Okay. The most important thing we need to do now is we need to find the center of each line. So we have 1, 2, and 3 different lines. And all I need to do now is count the characters. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know that 3 is the dead center. The ampersand, the and sign, that one obviously is dead center because it's the only one. And then I chose an even number to show you guys how to do it. So obviously neither 2 or 3 is dead center. Actually, the space, basically what would be 2.5 is the dead center. So, and this customer wants it to be on a heart. So, I am going to, and I'll put this over here so you guys can take a peek at the math I did, so to speak. And I like to, before I put any tape down to secure it, I like to put a stamp in. And I'm going to bring it down. I feel I have it centered, and just make sure in the back that it's going through my 2 vertical lines. I feel that it is. And maybe just because I'm being a real nitpicker, I'll move it just a teeny bit more. And I'm going to secure it very quickly. And so now the dead center is the ampersand, the and sign. So I take ampersand, alright, everything looks good. again, you can stamp pretty softly on these pendant stamping machines. It makes a nice deep impression. These pendants are made specifically to work with our machine and stamps. And again, these stamps work with your ring machine as well as the pendant stamping machine. So now I have the ampersand, and I need the first N in Johnny to truly make this match. And if I want this to match, again, yeah, I am going to be eyeballing the different spaces in between the lines. So Johnny's in the first line, but it's pretty easy. All I'm going to be doing is making sure that there's enough space in between this new stamp and the previous stamp. So as long as I can see the entire ampersand, I know that it's safe to stamp on the next line because it's not going to overshadow or double shadow. So it's safe to stamp the N. N looks good. It's lined up with the ampersand. And now I'm going to go down and I have to stamp either the R or the A. I'm going to do the R. And because I know that the R needs to be to the right of the ampersand, I'm just going to make sure that my heart is lined up center. I'm also going to take a quick peek to make sure that there's enough space. And it's going to be just to the right of the ampersand. Because this is just the first character, I can do this one without taping absolutely everything down. Now that I got the first character, and if I ever feel that it moved, which I kind of did just see it move, and I say, oh geez, I just moved the whole thing, I can quickly take the R stamp and lock the R stamp into place with the R that was made on the heart. And so these stamps, because they're precision made, lock into place. So this stamp has locked into the initial impression. So if I tape it now, it's going to be pretty safe because I know that it is locked into place with this R. So now I can take the R out, and this is where everything speeds up tremendously. I'm going to stamp the A. And again, the sliding plate is locking into place for each character space. It automatically controls the spacing. One more, locked into place. Sarah. Alright. Now we're going to untape it real quickly. Now, just because I'm a complete perfectionist and I would rather make sure that I got this dead center, also, which I almost just forgot, let's move the sliding plate back to center, because you'll find that sometimes if you move the plate all the way to the left and you move to a new line and keep moving to the left, you actually run out of spaces for the sliding plate's automatic spacing feature to function. And just to make it easy, we're going to put it back in center. I'm doing what I did on the Sarah stamp, which is just making sure that the N locks into place. Once I feel it lock in, I just take a quick peek, make sure it lines up with all of my lines. So that was the first N, so I'm going to be stamping the second N. And I can see there's no overlap. Safe to stamp another N, Johnny, with the Y. I need an O. And again, all these stamps have a notch. So as long as I have the notch facing the same way, all my characters are going to come out in the same position. They're not going to be upside down and sideways. So that's how I'm able to so easily pull out a stamp and stick it right in the machine, because I don't need to look at it and try and figure out which shape or which direction the letter is going to be facing, because I already know. So now, obviously this is before we color it in, but as you can see, and it might be pretty hard to see, I know we're trying to focus in here, but that's a great shot right there. Maybe go over it a little bit more, and we'll post some more pictures of this so you can see the letters when they're blackened in. But as you can see, it's lined up, meaning and Sarah are lined up center with Johnny, and that's going to be the most important part, because even if there's you have one letter that's a little bit thicker than another, you can go back in and, like, I'm looking at the second N and I might say, oh, I want to make that a little bit thicker and deeper, so I might re-stamp that letter. Just because it's safe to, I'm just going to lock the N into place and re-stamp that N. But after, that's something that can be done afterwards. You can't go back and recenter something once it's stamped. It's too late. The only thing you can do is make characters thicker by double or triple stamping them, but maybe after I color it, I'll find that I don't even want to do that. It looks so black.